Hi, I'm Darren Flagg from Animal Strength Human Performance Training, and today I'm here to talk to you a little bit about your posture and your anatomy and how that can affect both your performance and impact pain in your joints, specifically in your low back, your hips, your knees, and your ankles. So, the first thing typically when I'm talking to somebody about this that I'll ask them is, when you're walking or when you're moving, what kind of relationship do you have with your feet? And what I mean by that is, what direction when you move, when you walk and run, are your feet pointing? Ideally, the reason why we're standing upright and on our feet is that our toes should be pointing pretty much straight ahead. By that happening, your ankles and your knees can act as a hinge and bend properly. So as you move, the load and the force of your weight moves through those joints in such a way that doesn't cause major damage to them. Okay? However, what happens is we always live under the force of gravity as long as we're on Earth, and we encounter a lot of stress, whether it's through exercise or other things in our lives. And as a result, that stress takes a toll on our bodies and can manifest itself in different ways. And what I've really noticed is that a lot of people's feet, when they move, aren't going straight ahead. Now, there's a lot of people that may argue and try to say, it's just my anatomy and that's the way I was born. And I would have to debate that a little bit, because when you look at little babies, when they're laying on their back and developing, their body's a lot different. And as they go through different stages of development, their feet develop arches, and their legs, because they start getting up, are meant to be underneath them to provide support. So ideally, your feet should be straight ahead for walking and running, and these lower leg bones and upper thigh bones need to be underneath you. But what happens is, instead of these bones supporting you ideally, as stress accumulates in our body, and if we don't do things to counteract that, our hips start to rotate out, and as we walk or run, instead of the knees and ankles bending straight on, they're outturned. And so the forces that you incur in your hip, in your knee, and in your ankle are forces that our anatomical design wasn't really made to deal with. So if you notice that when you move, when you're on your feet, your toes go out slightly or more than slightly, something like this, what I want you to try is a real simple test. Put your feet forward. When you have your feet straight ahead, what I want you to do, I'm going to show you this with my arms first because it's very hard to see what I'm doing with this pants on. I want you to take your upper thigh bones, your femurs, and I want you, you'll see by the action what happens with my hands, I want you to rotate, follow my shoulders, your thigh bones internally. Okay, so I want you to turn your left leg clockwise and your right leg counterclockwise. These toes are ahead. Rotate those thigh bones. See what happens here. Basically what you're doing when you rotate those thigh bones is you're turning your femoral heads up to underneath you to provide support. That puts the femurs underneath you to hold the weight of your upper body and distribute force evenly in your feet, and allows your knees and ankles to hinge properly straight ahead. If when you do that, you notice that there's a significant amount of movement, odds are that when you're normally standing, walking, and running, you've gotten lazy here a little bit because of the muscles in your body and just the effects of the force of gravity and other stress over time, that you allow these hips to turn out. And then by doing so, whenever you're walking and running, you're really pretty much wrecking these hinge joints down below. It may also lead to problems, pain in the groin, and also in the low back, because now when these hips are turned out, instead of the upper thigh bones being underneath your pelvis and supporting your pelvis, which then is what holds the rest of the weight of your upper body upright, what happens is we fall forward. You see a lot of people as they get older standing out with locked knees, toes out, the trunk starts to fall forward, and then they start getting into what's known as the senile posture. I know most people probably aren't doing that by choice, and we can do a lot to prevent that. The bottom line and the point of the discussion today, though, is look down at your feet. Look at when you walk. If your feet are going out laterally, rotated out, and or when you look at the bottom on the soles of your shoes, it seems more worn out on the outer edges or lateral sides, you're definitely moving with those legs turned out, which translates into tight ankles, tight knees, pain in the ankles, pain in the groin, pain in the low back, all right? So we didn't develop this way for no reason. Our anatomical design evolved this way to optimize the load of our body and to help us move. And so what I want you to start doing, be conscious of this until it becomes second nature. Get your feet straight in front of you. Rotate those thigh bones so that they're locked in to hold your pelvis in position. And what you'll see, it may feel awkward because you've gotten used to moving it a different way, is that your knees and ankles now bend right in front of you. So instead of having motion like this where you almost swing, or it's harder to bend them because they're not moving in straight ahead, you'll be able to have that proper support of your neck. Get those toes forward, feet, thigh bones underneath you. Start learning to move again properly. And what you're going to see is those little aches and pains in the knee joint, the ankle joints, the hips, the groin, the low back, that's going to go away. Also, what you're going to see is the wear on your shoes becomes a lot more even. You don't just see that lateral edge wearing out and back at the heel, but there's a much more even wear pattern.